Welcome to Beyond the Gate. I'm Dan Friel, and today we're heading outside the gate of Yaguru Scout Reservation and taking a trip to rural Maine to have an exclusive interview with someone who has dedicated over 40 years of their life to Yaguru Scout Reservation and has seen things and been a part of some monumental projects that transformed Yaguru into the Scout Adventureland we know and love today. Paul Forbes, thank you so much for allowing us to share Maine with you, but also to take this opportunity to interview you and share your story.
Great. Welcome to Maine.
So Paul, let's go back in time. What is your earliest memories of Yaguru?
To be honest, a Cub Scout field trip was the first time I ever saw Yaguru, but didn't know what it was. Our pack went out there, and I remember strange things like walking on the stone wall of the dam, and the fact that behind the shop where Al Gunther lived, he had chickens, and that stuck in my head. And when I met Al for the first time, I asked him about those chickens, and in fact he did, and that was the earliest memory of it. And then of course I camped as a scout with Troop 1 Narragansett, most years in Silver Buffalo, until the year we couldn't provide our own leadership, and we stayed in George Washington.
Wow.
Yep.
So Paul, you started working for Yaguru Scout Reservation in 1978.
Correct, December of '78, yes.
What brought you to Yaguru Scout Reservation as a member of the staff?
I was a member of the Carolina Fire Department, and the chief of the department at that time was Hank Handel, who was a Yaguru Ranger. And so an opening came up in late fall for an assistant ranger to live there. And he called me about that job. And the first time I turned it down because I was pretty well set and due to get married and had just bought a place, and didn't feel that that's what I wanted to do. And so I said no the first time, and then I talked about it with my soon-to-be wife, Julie, and we decided it probably was a good fit for us, and so then I decided to go after the job.
So that's quite the start. And so you served 40 years, so starting in 1978 all
Yes.
the way to 2019.
Correct.
That's a lot of things that can happen in those course of years. So what was probably the craziest experience that you witnessed or a part of it? Yeah.
Well, as any of us know who work there, there's lots of crazy things at Yaguru. And my first, and probably should have been my last crazy experience, was the first time I met Al Gunther, who was the current ranger at the time. The word superintendent hadn't been invented yet for the position. And Al had been there since, I believe, 1959. And so this was in '78. So he'd been there a while. And when I did decide I wanted the job, I called Hank Handel, the ranger and fire chief, and he said, well, come up tomorrow and you'll need to see Al Gunther, and he'll interview you and say yes or no whether you can continue. And I says, great. Well, back then, Rangers worked 6 days a week and got one weekend a month off. And the weekend that you got off, you didn't get a day off before the weekend or after the weekend. So time off was fairly precious back then. And anybody who knows Al then knew that Thursday was his day off. Thursday morning, I show up to see Al Gunther. And I go to the shop, he's not there. Hank said, oh, just go over by his house, which, if you knew Al Gunther, was another no-no. So he's just coming out his front door and down the path. And I said, hi, I'm Paul Forbes. I'm interested in the job. And he looked up at me and said, I'm on my day off. Come back some other time. And jumped into his pickup and raced out the gate. And that was my first experience being employed at Camp Yaguru and with Al Gunther. And it just was a crazy thing. And most people probably would have left and not come back, but I did want the job, and I did come back the next day. And Al and I have laughed about that story for 40 years or longer that I've known him.
So Paul, it's crazy to think that it's been over a year since you've retired from Yawgoog Scout Reservation and the Narragansett Council. And I know that you've had this paradise up here in Maine for quite a while now, but what have you been working on, and what are we working on here? What have you been doing to stay busy the past year?
Busy has never been a problem for me. Bored is not in my vocabulary because I've always got something to do. This is going to be a dedicated woodworking shop, and anyone that knows me knows that I'm a woodworker, and I have been my entire life. And that's what this is going to be for. And I'm building it myself, and it's slow work. The travel restrictions have prevented my friends from coming up and giving me a hand, and we hope to get to that in the fall. But right now I'm working alone, and it's warm, and but we're getting there. It's a 24 by 36 building, and again, it's strictly for woodworking. It's not a shop to work on vehicles. In fact, there's no way to get a vehicle in it. It's got a wood floor for comfort, and that's the plan, and I'll have it closed in and hopefully heatable before the cold weather comes. Actually, to be honest, right here is going to be a 12 by 12 room.
Really?
Like an office or a place.
Recreate your...
Well, a place to put a lot of my collection in, my lanterns, my stoves, all the stuff that I've accumulated over my lifetime. And then the rest of it will be an open space to set up my machinery and bench for handwork and all that kind of stuff. I have a nice ceiling in it. It's going to be finished quite nicely inside. Storage
up top?
Yes, there is storage up top. Yep.
The Kubotas look great.
Yeah, everyone needs to.
The Kubotas look nice. Like a real nice coat on them.
Yeah.
It's different when you don't have everybody else grabbing your machinery and running into the ground.
Tell me, the other nice thing is doing what I want on my own schedule, whatever I want.
Yeah, right?
There will be a garage door here for taking big stuff in and out.
Right here.
Yeah, and then a stairway outside that goes upstairs.
Nice.
This will all be graded off. It's just as soon
house?
as I can take the bracing down. There'll be a solar wood kiln over there for drying wood. There'll be a miniature long shed for putting equipment under.
Recreating it all.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Well,
it is like a miniature version of what you made for a home up at Yaguru.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It will be.
So Paul, over the many years, you got to witness a lot of different programs, some that stayed throughout all the 40 years that you were there. But what was one of the most favorite programs that you had that you got to participate in or be a part of?
Sure. Well, as you know, Yaguru had COPE before the Boy Scouts did, and we called it Challenge and still do. And that idea started in the summer of '79, and we worked on it in '79 and '80, as I recall. And with some of the older staff that had gone to Alton Jones campus and involved with Project Adventure, which was popular at the time. And so we basically built the first course before there were Boy Scout standards, before there was ACCT. And so we worked our way through all that stuff. And that was a core group of us and worked on that when we could. You know, summer is a busy time. And eventually we did get a course built, which it pales in comparison by what we do today, with what we do today. But that was a favorite project that I worked on. I really enjoyed that. The other one was that sticks out was shotgun shooting. That didn't exist, and it's something that I was involved in personally. So I enjoyed it. I was fairly fluent in it, and we presented it to whoever it is we presented to back at the time, probably the camping committee. And we did that. And we built that from the ground up with the help from the state. They were called the Department of Natural Resources back then. It's today's DEM. And they had a division that was hunter safety that was state employees. And there were two, it was a husband and wife team. And they came to camp and helped us enormously and set us up so that we could get donated shotguns and donated ammunition for at least the first couple of years. And that program has stayed popular, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy seeing it, and I enjoyed all my years involved with the shooting sports department and staff. That was always a pleasure. But those two, and there were many. I mean, I worked on a lot of projects, and probably even to this day, I'm sure, I mean, the Ranger staff is involved in just about every program, center, development that there's going to be. And that needs to be the case. And so a lot of successful programs over the years.
And so one thing, Paul, I will say that was something that you and I both got to work on, which there was a lot of doubters. There was a lot of speculation if it would go off well, but you were one of the ones that was very effective, and you were very supportive of the program, and it was such a joy to work with you on it. And that was Fun Friends and Adventure.
Yeah.
What was your take on that?
That was a crowning achievement, really. That was an outside of Yagoo, outside the box. Historically, we never left camp very well. That's not something we did well. We were great in camp, but when we crept out that gate with a program, it often was had some problems. But that was just a great program, and it went over well. Anyone who participated enjoyed it, and the feedback was great. The other thing that was kind of neat was we had staff from all three camps in every department working together on it. Long hours on top of our regular duties that we all had. And I can remember the late night meetings afterwards to see if the day went well and all that stuff. And it sure did, culminating with the burning of the building that we actually built with the Arrow Corps, which was it was so Yagoo. I mean, only Yagoo would build a building to burn down, for a program. And that was a great program. It really was.
Yeah, and that was due to you and your team, and that was
everyone involved. Everybody worked hard. I remember it very well.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I.
And we happened to coordinate with those fireworks, I believe, at the end with Kaboom, and so it really was an awesome week.
And do the Kaboom, you two met through the filming of Moonrise Kingdom.
Correct.
Which was another thing that you were very a part of, including being in the
I was, and
scene.
so was John Vuno, because he was on the fire department and did a lot of the arranging of the water, and so we helped. We call him Kaboom, and I can't come up with his real name.
Was it Dennis?
No, but anyway, it's John Ruggieri, and so he kept telling us, "You guys helped me out so much. When you're ready for something, let me know." And he was originally talking about a half-price show, and when I went to him and said, "Look, it's our 100th anniversary. We'd like to do something the last night of camp," and he said, "Free." And that was a $28,000 show that he donated, and it was super. Anybody that saw that was amazed by it. The fact that it was out over the pond and it was a perfect night, and that just kind of was a perfect ending to that whole program.
So, Paul, you've seen a lot of kids go through Yagoo. You've seen a lot of staff grow up at Yagoo. You've been such a huge part of that upbringing, a lot of those kids growing up, especially the staff, especially the ranger teams, but the camp directors and such. But I know the two most important children that were raised on the reservation were your two own. What was it like raising, as we like to call them, the Yagoo originals? That's
the name that I came up with. The kids, there's so few of them born and raised there, that Yagoo originals is kind of a neat name. As I said, we worked those 6 days a week, and we got one weekend a month, so you had to plan carefully. And so it was nice having the family right there. It was nice for many reasons. It was safe, it was secure, it was comforting. You knew that you had a roof over your head, and that was part of the salary. And so it was great, and the camp certainly is a great place. Both of my kids worked at camp, my daughter in the office, and then my son spent his whole 7 or 8 years in the office, ending as office manager. And both of them love the place today, and our frequent visitors. They like to go down, and now of course my grandkids are going there, and they enjoy it as well. So it was a good life. It really was. You were home if a kid needed to come home sick from school. The job was such that you could make that happen. And Al Gunther always made it happen for me, and I made sure that when Justin and John had kids and they needed time for such things, that was part of the job. because certainly we made up for it in other ways. So it was a wonderful life. It really was.
And there's a lot of names and legends that go throughout Yagoo, and so you got to witness and meet a lot of them over the years. I know you had a special relationship with Paul Slade, who we all know as from the Slade's Bridge.
Correct.
And having so many artifacts and so much that offered Yagoo. So Paul Slade being one of them, is there anything, great memories that you share with maybe about Paul Slade or Gus Anthony?
I met Paul Slade, and I'm going to say we were building the Thunder Cabin. It was under construction. He came to camp with Donald Dillon, and they were looking around, and I talked to him a little bit about the bridge. He was always very hard of hearing. It's an interesting story because Gus Anthony, Inky Armstrong, and Paul Slade were all friends, and they were friends from school. And they sat alphabetically back then, but because Paul's hearing was poor, he sat up front. So he was with the A's. And so that's how he was associated with them. So he was an interesting guy. He was an engineer for Narragansett Electric. And so he built that bridge, and he was just a cool guy. And he came to every reunion until he passed away. He was well in his 80s, I believe, when he passed away. And it was a joy to talk to him.
So Paul, obviously over the years, you became somebody that a lot of staff looked up to. Was there staff people or members of staff that you looked up to?
Thinking back, I camped at Sandy Beach in the late 60s and maybe into 71. I'm not sure exactly of the years, but a person that I remember from those years is Jim Essex, because he was the Sandy Beach camp director, or maybe divisional commissioner as they called him then. And he is the same now as he was then. And I remembered him, and he was sort of when you're a little kid, it doesn't take much for someone to be a legend or somebody you really can't wait to see, or maybe even get to talk to. And Jim Essex was one of those guys. And never a summer went by that I didn't go see him when he was in camp. And he would make a spectacle of it, of course, as Jim does. And he was a great guy, and he's done an awful lot for hundreds and thousands of kids, I would imagine. But he sticks out in my mind as a Yagoo personality. The other one was Dennis Labbe, who, and I'm thinking it was 1969. We had no scoutmaster available to go to camp, so he was I think they call him roving scoutmaster or something to that effect. And we stayed with him in George Washington, and he certainly left an impression on all of us. He was a good guy, very organized, as if anybody remembers him, he was that way at camp. He then became a baker, and then a chef and a baker, right up into the 90s or past that, into the 2000s. And he was a top-notch baker and chef. He baked from scratch and did a great job. And he worked pre-camp for many years. He worked for, his regular job was cooking for a sorority, I believe, at URI. So that made him available summers. And when he got out, he would come and work with the Rangers doing pre-camp work. So those two guys definitely, they're the ones that stick out for whatever reason. And I'm sure every kid that goes to camp has got a couple of people that they remember,
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So Paul, you've been up here now for over a year, full time. What's something that you miss most about being down at Yagoo?
Well, believe it or not, and when I was still moving when Staff Week came around for 2019, and I missed opening camp. Unless you've done that, it's hard to describe. It's ridiculous. We know that. And the same with closing camp. Two sides of the same coin. But it was, after that, you'll always think about camp. I mean, you've been there. Anyone who's worked there does, as is evidenced by the number of people that join the Alumni Association. And And everybody thinks their years were the best, and they were, until the next people come along, and then their years are the best to them. And that's what we want. And I still find myself saying we. When I'm talking with John, it pops out because it was so long, what are we doing about this? Or remember when we, or I have to remember that it's they now, and certainly not we. But so, I have been here a year, and to think that you could erase it from your life is impossible. So, it comes up. But I didn't, this is a strange year. And, if I was still working at camp and had to deal with this, as I mentioned to you before, believe it or not, despite the incredible work that camp is for 10 weeks, it's a break from the routine. It becomes the routine for the summer, and by the time that last staff person leaves, you do breathe a sigh of relief and take a little break and get going for the next year. But those 10 weeks are great. And I've asked a couple of people, what do you think? What is it like not having to work nights or being able to take a weekend off? And nice, but not nice. It's we look forward to that break that is camp.
So Tom Sisson now has been for 22 years the reservation director. You saw a lot of reservation directors through the years, but I think it'd be fair to say that none that you worked with as closely and for so long with as Tom Sisson.
That's correct.
What was it like working with Tom Sisson side by side for all those years?
Well, I met Tom, and I met Tom well before he was reservation director, but I didn't know it. And a troop had damaged a latrine. And at the time, they were the composting latrines with the spinning things, right? And they threw rocks until they destroyed it. And the troop fessed up to it, and they paid for it. And it was years later that I mentioned maybe we had some damage in camp. I don't know. And I said to Tom, I says, it's nice. And the troop had come forward. I said, that almost never happens. I says, one year, we had a latrine vandalized and they ruined the thing. He goes, that was my troop. And so, I met him then, but didn't know it. And then he started as the assistant reservation director and quickly became the reservation director. And we did work close for years. And I had counted up how many reservation directors I worked for, and it might be 7 or 8. Certainly Tom was the longest. And, I don't work for the Boy Scouts anymore, so I can say this. Tom was a breath of fresh air compared to the district executives who sometimes were forced into the job and didn't really put their heart and soul in it until it was time for camp. There were a couple that really didn't think of camp until June. And, Tom was witness to that when he was ARD that first year, and things weren't done that needed to be done. And Tom was the kind of guy who would ask you questions, and he did. We had a couple of nice long chats when he first came because, there were stories and rumors, and we got a scoutmaster that's going to be the reservation director, and yeah, that's true. And he was a scoutmaster, but he was a good one. And we had a long and fruitful career together. I will say that. And I say he was a breath of fresh air, full of new ideas, certainly not afraid to take a chance, as we well know. And, he is, no one's worked harder. So, there's no, I can't say enough about Tom. He was good to me. I'd like to hope I was good to him. And we got a lot done, an awful lot done. Things that maybe wouldn't have happened if the two of us weren't working that closely together. So it benefited the camp, and I'm happy for that. And I know that he has that same relationship with John, and so that's a good thing. Yago's in good hands. And I enjoyed my time with Tom. Did we always get along? Of course not. Nobody ever always gets along, but we always got the job done, and I think we did a great job.
And I think I can speak for many of us that have got to work underneath you and Tom, and we wouldn't be the people we are today without Tom and
you in our lives, because you were just, the way you worked together and what you got done, and the model that you set for all of us in your demonstration was pretty remarkable. So I know I thank you. I know a lot of people thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we talked a lot about improvements. We talked about programs. What is probably the most significant improvement that you were a part of that you saw at Yaguru over all those 40 years?
Well, it has to be the conversion from composting latrines to flush toilets. We all know that the composting latrines were a dismal failure, and we lived with them for a number of years and talked about a solution for a number of years. And we had various engineers in to tell us what to do, and the price tag was always in the millions of dollars to have it put in. Of course, there wasn't that kind of cash laying around. And so we came up with the idea, John Vuno, to be honest with you, and I came up with the idea of maybe we could do it ourselves if we bought the equipment. And we ran into a problem that we didn't have a license to install the pipe. So our good friends, LP Andrews Excavating, allowed us to do that job with their license, under their supervision. You know, they built a leach field, but the ranger staff, and we hired some Yaguru staff to work along with us at times, but we spent about 4 years on that project. And I believe our cost to put it in was under $1 million, including the leach field. So that was probably in 2007, maybe we did that, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I think if we hadn't actually started and done it, we'd still be talking about it. And it was affecting camp. It was affecting our business, those composting latrines, the odor and just the unpleasant conditions. So that, I think, was one of the most beneficial projects that I worked on. And there was a negative side to that, in that routine maintenance went by the wayside on some things. You know, it slid. And we probably worked, and we're probably still, there's we again, probably still working to catch up and get us back to where we need to be. Because, 4 years. At least John and I were on it almost full time for 4 years, and then Justin and the other guys would do some maintenance, and then they bring in, and we did hire some Yaguru staff to help us along with it. But I think that was a significant project.
So Paul, I can't see a John Deere tractor or any tractor without thinking of you, my friend. But what is in the day in the life now? Like, what does the day look like for you today?
Much like when I was working, it involves work. As I said, I'm never bored. I have plenty to do around here. This is a 12-acre piece of land. There's always something to do on it. I'm remodeling the cabin and building the shop, and there's always something to do. I still have my hobbies, my railroading, and I work 2 days a week at the Cog Railway. I'm at Washington. And I have a sawmill, and I stay busy. And to be honest, except for the word I want to use, the coronavirus has not impacted my daily routine, because it often involved not leaving the property anyway. Much like camp, particularly as summer came around, there would sometimes several days in a row where you were just at camp working. And it's kind of like that here. I mean, work is always something I've done. I've worked since I was 13. And so it, I've only had 2 major jobs, if you will, and one of them took 40 some years of my life, and then the other one was 4 or 5. But it's good. Retirement is wonderful. I tell everybody, don't wait till the minute you can retire. Do it on the second you can retire, and you can go. I tell you what, there's nothing like it. And everybody told me that, every day's a weekend, and it's all true. As long as you are able to stay healthy, there's really nothing else to worry about. And that's good. But, I get up early in the morning, just like I always did. And I just work around, and I usually have goals that I've set for the week anyway, so then get things done. And some days I go in and take a nap. And that's, the heat has been tough just up here as much as, it's 90 degrees up here, just like it is back at camp. And, so we deal with that, but it's good.
So there's certainly stories. Paul, you're one of the best storytellers. You've certainly taught us many lessons, a lot of us that have worked with you. But what is one piece of advice that you can give anybody who is a member of the Yaguru staff, the Yaguru team? What is one piece of advice that you would like to share with them?
Well, I think it boils down to hard work. I've always said that I wish there was a way to calculate what went in to Camp Yaguru for a summer. A staffulator or something that just, if you could capture the energy that goes into that. And it's hardworking people. And I think no matter what you do, if you're a hardworking person, you'll get ahead. And, you can make yourself a nice life in retirement. But Yaguru seems to attract quality people. We make sure of that, and it's always been that way. There's been some outstanding people that have been, I don't even know how many I've met, but I would have to say it's thousands. And I still have some very good friends from camp. When it came time to do put the septic system in here, it was a Yaguru staffman that helped me out. Gary Fullerton, who starred in the first Yaguru video way back when, is an engineer that does this, and he lives in Maine. And he reached out to me at a reunion and said, hey, when you're ready to do that. So, enjoy that place. Enjoy the people that you meet. And because, there's a lot of amazing people. They go on to do all sorts of stuff. And some of them never go away. The Yaguru's in their mind all the time. Some are in a position to be magnificent benefactors, as we know, because they were treated right and they worked hard on the staff. So that would be my advice. Work hard, give it all, give it your all on the staff. It's almost required anyway, but it's a good thing.
So Paul, 40 years, a lot of memories, a lot of experiences. If you could sum up your Yaguru experience with one word, what would it be?
One word. Certainly successful. My accomplishments there were great. I did well, and I set myself up to live well after I left. So successful. It's tough to do in one word, but it was rewarding. It was a rewarding career. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I know that anybody that stays there anytime at all, that's why they're there. Certainly it's a salary that you need, but it's also a rewarding experience. And that's why people come back year after year after year. We all know that.
So Paul, as usual, we have always enjoyed your support, and you have not shown us any shortage of support through the Yawgoog Network. From the very beginning stages, our conversations, you and I, off the record about the Yawgoog Network, we've been so grateful for. And you're a proud subscriber of the Yawgoog Network.
I am.
You're one of the first.
I am indeed.
You're one of the first,
I am.
and I got to tell you, all of us were just so excited that you became a subscriber. There was a lot of cheers in the Yaguru office. So what's been something that you really enjoyed of being a part of or being a subscriber to the Yaguru Network?
I suppose that, getting glimpses of camp that really, if camp was open, you wouldn't be doing this and you wouldn't see the things going on. And it's incredibly well done. And, we talked about that, asking John how long it took to do. For instance, the video on building dining hall benches was professional. And from the filming to Pat's narration, and it was amazing, and I understand, the hours and hours and hours that it took. And so for people that think there's nothing going on at camp, I knew that it had to be a significant endeavor because, I fool around with trying to do some YouTube things, and I can't imagine editing the videos. I really can't, because that's my toughest thing. And I just think it gives you those glimpses into camp. It has the flavor of camp. I mentioned to John that I saw my first Monday night campfire in 30 years when I watched one of those. And there's just as much energy and talent as if the amphitheater was full of kids. And I think it's an amazing project. And I follow some other camps, and there's a lot of good things going on, but of course this one is a higher standard than some of the stuff I've seen. And, as I watch, I realize that, a lot of heart is going into it. And I appreciate that, and I enjoy watching it, and I look in every day to see what's going on. And I hope troops are doing the same.
And that certainly keeps us making sure that we're top quality.
Right.
We know you're watching, so we want to do your best on that.
Again, it's nice, the foolishness of camp.
Hysteria, as you like to say.
Hysteria. I mean, maybe if you weren't a Yagoo person or a Boy Scout, you probably wouldn't get the same, you wouldn't take away the same thing that we do, that have been there and know what's going on. And I always have to stop and realize that there's nobody there watching this. They're just guys are doing all this. You're cooking, and it's pretty neat. It's a great idea.
Thank you,
and
Paul.
It's well done.
Well, Paul, I can't thank you enough for allowing us to come up to your humble abode up here in Maine. I know I've wanted to venture up here for years, and all the stories you've told me, and I'm just so grateful for allowing us to come up here. And we actually brought up the Yawgoog Network T-shirt for you, and the Yawgoog Network patch,
all right,
and everything and a postcard to send us down if you want to write us something. But thank you so much, Paul. We appreciate everything that you've done for Yawgoog, everything done for all of us.
Thanks for coming up, and again, I'm still surprised that this was something that you wanted to do. I couldn't quite grasp why you needed to interview me, but I'm glad you did.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us back home. We hope you got to learn and get to experience Paul Forbes, who we all have got to experience on the staff, but we all wanted to share this amazing man with all of you. So thank you for tuning in. And as Paul would say, it's been a dandy. So thank you for joining us on Beyond the Gate. Thank you.